Sunset on Mars is a pale, washed-out, watery sort of procedure that is hardly worth looking at. The shadows of the cactus lengthen, the sun goes down without the slightest hint of color or display, and everything is dark. About once a year there is one cloud that turns pink briefly. But even the travel books devote more space describing the new sign adorning the Canal Casino than they do on the sunset. The night sky is something else again. Each new crop of tourists goes to bed at sunrise the day after arrival, with stiff necks from looking up all night. The craters of the moons are visible to the naked eye, and even a cheap pair of opera glasses can pick out the buildings of the Deimos space station. A typical comment from a sightseer is, "Just think, Fred, we were way up there only 12 hours ago." The day after a particularly noisy, glaring fireworks display, the top brass at the observatory called an emergency meeting. The topic was not a new one but fresh evidence, in the form of several still-wet photographic plates showing out-of-focus skyrocket trails, and a galaxy of first-magnitude aerial cracker explosions was presented. "I maintain they fire them in our direction on purpose," one scientist declared. This was considered to be correct because the other directions around town were oil refineries and the homes of the casino owners. "Why don't we just move the observatory way out in the desert?" a technician demanded. "It wouldn't be much of a job." "It would be a tremendous job," said Dr. Morton, the physicist. "If not for the glare of city lights on Earth, we wouldn't have had to move our telescopes to the moon. If not for the gravel falling out of the sky on the moon, making it necessary to resurface the reflectors every week, we wouldn't have had to move to Mars. Viewing conditions here are just about perfect, except for the immense cost of transporting the equipment, building materials, workmen, and paying us triple time for working so far from home. Why did you ever figure the cost of a single photographic plate? What with salaries, freight to and from Earth, maintenance and all the rest, it's enormous. Then why don't we cut down the cost of ruined exposures?" asked the technician, "by moving the observatory away from town." "Because, Dr. Morton explained, we'd have to bring in crews to tear the place down, other crews to move it, still more crews to rebuild it. Not to mention unavoidable breakage and replacement, which involve more freight from Earth. At 0.97 per pound deadweight. Well, you figure it out. So we can't move and we can't afford ruined $1,000 plates," said the scientist who had considered himself a target for the fireworks. "Then what's the answer?" The usual suggestion was proposed that a delegation approach the town council to follow up the letter of protest. A search through the past meetings minutes showed that this had never accomplished anything up to date. A recent arrival to the observatory mentioned that their combined brain power should be enough to beat the games and thus force the casino owners, who were the real offenders, out of business. One of the scientists who had already tried that very scheme on a small scale reported his results. He proved with his tabulations that, in this instance, science, in the guise of the law of averages, was unfortunately against them. Dr. Morton rose to his feet. "I have a suggestion," he said quietly. "It may not work, but it's worth trying. At least it's scientific." The following Sunday afternoon, a couple of the casino owners dropped into the observatory to look through the big telescope. They were always welcome, in spite of the firecracker problem. "There's nothing like a good view of the rings of Saturn to make a man feel kindly towards science," said one of them, a Mr. Harvey who owned Harvey's Clubs. Dr. Morton smiled gently. "That's a wonderful idea," he said, "but I don't think it would work. Any stars worth looking at with the naked eye already have names. The only ones we could name after people are so far away that it would take an exposure of several hours just to see them on a photographic plate. You wouldn't be able to point yours out at all. Besides, Harvard Observatory wouldn't stand for this idea either. It would make as much sense to them as you naming a poker chip after me." He sighed. "But in any case, we would like to have all the owners over some time. It might improve relations somewhat." The two of them watched a rocket wobble all over the sky before exploding. "Let's go back inside," said the physicist. Maybe we can arrange that tour for Sunday. Sunday afternoon, the visitors, presumably softened up by what one of the chemists thought were martinis, were seated in the lecture hall listening to Dr. Morton. I want to show you a couple of things, he said, that will prove to you that we astronomers are not just a bunch of long hairs. He pressed a button and a moving picture of an eclipse of the sun flashed on the screen. It was, of course, an eclipse that had been photographed on Earth, but it was very impressive. Next, he showed a color film of the aurora borealis, also photographed on Earth. "Say," said Mr. Harvey, "that's pretty good." Dr. Morton smiled again. "Now," he said, "I have a little surprise for you." He pressed another button, and the screen lit up with the title, "Your Horoscope," prepared by the staff of Mars Observatory. The casino owners leaned forward in their seats. The film ran through a list of the usual zodiac signs, with a pretty girl posing as each one. Then it showed a picture of Mars, with arrows pointing to the constellation under which the next fireworks display was scheduled. "It happens," said Dr. Morton's voice on the soundtrack, "that the planet Mars in its present position makes it possible for our astronomers to predict, with great accuracy, that anyone born under the sign of," here he paused for a moment, "then read the name of Mr. Harvey's sign, will have extraordinary luck during the coming week. Naturally, this will be most noticeable in games of chance. The observatory recommends that these people patronize Harvey's club." A murmur went through the audience. Dr. Morton turned on the lights. "Now," he said, "you gentlemen know that we astronomers don't believe in this stuff any more than you do. We just thought it would be a good way to keep the tourists interested in astronomy." Mr. Harvey stood up, his face red. "You mean to tell me," he demanded, "that you're going to show that picture to the public?" "Just a promise," said the scientist. Harvey said nothing but looked sullen. "You are on the town council," Morton continued. "Now, the next time the question of tourist entertainment is discussed, we want you to vote against a fireworks display." He then explained how important plates had been ruined by skyrocket trails. Harvey listened with great interest, especially when Dr. Morton flatly stated that each casino, in turn, would get the same publicity in the horoscopes. "The council members are all for the tourists," Harvey commented, "and you guys are supposed to be nuts, like all scientists. But I'll do like you say." He reached into his pocket. "Here's $50. Use it for a full-page ad this time, and do the Desert Sands Casino in your next horoscope. And say, before I go, can I look through the telescope? I never seem to have time before." At weekly intervals, Dr. Morton presented a new horoscope, each one boosting a different casino. The response was immediate and tremendous. Tourists flocked to the favored casino of the week, and the lucky owners found their places so crowded they had to hire extra croupiers. "Dr. Morton," said Harvey, "on his second visit to the observatory, it made the papers back on Earth, and all the new tourists are packing into the Harvey Club. Even the other operators are playing my tables. That's why I want you to have this." He handed Dr. Morton the box. It read Harvey's Club in the center and Dr. Morton's poker chip around the edge. Across the bottom it said 5,000. "That's dollars in it, Professor," said Harvey. "Don't spend it all in one place."